So this morning we're here at St. Joe's to talk a little bit about the St. Joe's Supper Table as part of our St. Joe's Parish History Series with Terry Byrne. And we're here with Terry, Ryan, and Larry Martin as well to give us different perspectives on the supper table. So Terry, I think we're going to start with you. I think my first question to you, Terry, will be, how did the supper table get started? Can you give us some information on that?
Yes, Chris, it was started back in 1978 when a young man came to the door of St. Joseph's Rectory, and Father Fred McGee happened to be passing through the rectory at the time, and he said, yes, how can I help you? And he said, Father, do you think you can spare some food? I haven't eaten for 2 days. So Father Fred brought him in, opened a can of soup, made him a sandwich, gave him a coffee, and sat down and talked to him for over an hour. And upon leaving, he said to him, if you're ever hungry again, there's always a soup and sandwich here for you. And if you know any other people who are deprived of food, tell them to come here too. And that started the soup kitchen. And the first year, it wasn't really organized in any way, shape, or form. Father Fred simply told the front staff to just open a can of soup, make a sandwich with whatever you had, and go from there. But as time progressed into the next year, they thought that a soup and a sandwich wasn't sufficient, so they started making casseroles and some hot plates and that, and they just make them and then warm them up when somebody came. Well, by 1981, we had over 2,000 meals served. And that grew to, in 1991, to 7,700 meals served each year. And then by 2001, it had grown to over 19,000 meals a year. And keep in mind, we never had a full-time staff member running the soup kitchen until 2002. So we relied on the generosity of volunteers who cooked food, donated money, and volunteered to provide services to the needy. They also used a lot of fundraising methods. They had breakfast down in the church hall every 4 weeks on a Sunday morning. And they were sure to get a big crowd because some of the parishioners recall the smell of bacon moving through the church during Mass. And they're all saying, well, we got to go down there for our breakfast. But they had, Rideau Carleton Racetrack was another major area where they fundraised. They had garage sales. They had a variety of things. And it was only in 2002 that we hired our first full-time manager, Dave Rowe. Up to that point in time, we had volunteers doing a lot of work, and Melissa Sabrin taking on the oversight role for the supper table. So it was an interesting time. It's how we started, and where we're at today is the soup kitchen basically was changed to the supper table as a result of a straw poll that my brother took, Gary Byrne. And when he asked people, would you prefer us to serve food at lunchtime or at supper time? And they said supper time because now they were able to find more food at lunchtime. And they asked what name they'd like to be associated with, and it came out as the supper table. So in 2002, we moved over to the name of the supper table.
Great, thank you so much, Terry. Larry, we're going to turn to you now on this side of the Rectory Chapel. Now, Larry, you've been involved in the supper table for very many years. How has the program evolved during your time?
Okay, I've been a volunteer for a good 12 years. I retired actually in November, much to my regret. I found the workload is heavy. It's a lot to do. Anyways, what's interesting is there's been growth and remodeling in the supper table. We've had different kitchen floors replaced, different kitchen equipment replaced, and Ryan, we understand, is quite a good person for finding fundraising dollars to help us out. So that's good. Our debt load has been reduced. The key word, the goal, the angels are the volunteers that come. There are a lot of them. They're not all from St. Joe. We get students, we get people coming from the West End, we get people coming from our doorstep. A very interesting mix. When I was working in the evening shift, we used to have 7 on. And several would be serving, some would be plating, that means putting the food onto the plates and getting them ready. Someone would run the dishwasher, and somebody would just sort of generally supervise. And I used to do the coffee and then let people in. That has changed. I was just checking with Ryan, and we're totally reorganized. We're now serving about 25 breakfasts in the morning, about 35 lunches, and about 50 suppers. So that's a lot of food. That's a lot of work. So Ryan counts on people coming in the daytime. Likewise, when I used to work on the evening shift, I was work from 5 till 7. We always had the day shift that prepared the food and got all the things ready for us to serve. The managers, as Terry said, our first official manager was hired in 2002. That was Dave Rowe. He did it for several years. He was followed by Mary Murphy, and then Andrew Pump did a short stint, and then we've got our gentleman here, Ryan, who's been brave for over 2.5 years to carry the load. And I think he's got a pretty thick skin, right?
Yes, not bad. Not so much skin.
I never see him looking crappy or with a frown. He's always happy, so that's good. And I would say that describes a lot the atmosphere of the Saturday. We do have altercations sometimes with people with substance abuse, but in general, the people that come in there, they're happy to be served. They're glad to be there and see their friends. It's time for them to socialize out of the cold.
Larry, you mentioned a little bit about the role of volunteers, and the program really started off traditionally with many volunteers. You also gave a bit of insight into the sort of guests that would come, but I think you suggested there's a real diversity to the guests, right? You get people from all walks of life.
Yeah, I've got a list in a minute on many geographic locations and walks of life. Definitely. Yeah. Everything.
Okay. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to share about the role of volunteers?
Well, just that they're very faithful. The ones that I've worked with have been really good. We've had a good dynamic and gotten on really well together. I think that's thanks to our manager for setting a good tone and setting borderlines and how to run the place in an effective way. You need to have certain rules, if you like, to keep a place running. Because you're serving food, it moves fast. In the evening, it's about an hour and a half, and that food's gone. The people have been fed and they're on their way.
Now, I think you were going to share a little bit as well about the guests. You said they come from all parts of the city, and
I've listed. It's very interesting, and I don't have all the geographic locations, but I'll give you some of them. Our guests are many of them are immigrants or refugees or different cultures who come. We have lots of First Nations. I used to count about 10. And it was kind of a privilege because First Nations people take a while to get to know. And I got to know a few of them. It was quite gratifying in our interchange over the meals. We have Canadians coming from all areas of Canada. We've got them from Ottawa, and that's not just Sandy Hill, but all over the city. We've got people I've served people from France, Iran, India, Pakistan, South Sudan, Burundi, Rwanda, Russia, Latin America, and there's a whole bunch more. There's a real diversity comes here. They often come with their friends. Like there was a group of Burundian girls who used to come. I used to really enjoy seeing them, and then they're no longer coming. The people that come are obviously of low income. They're on social assistance, either of the straight for one person, or if you have a disability, you get a slightly larger amount of money. So they're in tight circumstances. Not that their money is paying rent. This food supplement, this food contribution to their lives is really important. Like without it, I don't know how a lot of them would survive. Some of them have told me they rent rooming houses at $450, $500 a month, full of bugs, full of cockroaches, full of rude people, full of noise, and just totally impossible. It's very hard to find housing. We all know that Ottawa's got a housing problem for people living in poverty. And I feel these people really need to be supported and nurtured. I know they like coming here. It's just a short visit. They're just here for about 10 or 15 minutes, and then they go, because we've got turnover. We've got more people waiting at the door so that they can't linger. But I think we're appreciated. I think a lot of them, they like us. I see them on the street, and they call me Mr. San Joseph. That's the name I get. They don't really forget my name. So I think we're a very special place here. We're also working kind of with the mission, which also has a feeding program. And I was over there one day, and actually I saw a lot of their people come here too. And I would go with both places too.
So based on all that, would you consider the supper table a success in terms of how it's developed and what it stands for today?
I would say yes. With the current numbers that Ryan's given me, that was a bit of a surprise. That was a good news. In my day, it used to range from maybe 50, 70, 100 on a really busy night. The most we ever had one day in the summer was 187. Oh, we were just loaded with dishes and stuff. But no, it's around the 50 to 70 mark. Well, when we were working on the evening rotation.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that very much there. That's great information, Larry. We'll just turn now to Ryan, who's the current manager of the supper table. And Ryan, I think you're sort of reimagining the program in many ways right now. Where do things stand at the moment?
Well, as the supper table stands right now, we've had to change dramatically due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And over the past year, as today is actually the 1-year mark where the World Health Organization actually declared a worldwide pandemic, things have changed greatly from allowing our guests to come in at nighttime and serving 120 to 130 people nightly to slightly altering our programs in a way that would accommodate them. So we offer a 3-meal program now. As Larry was mentioning, we offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We offer breakfast from 9 to 11, lunch from 11 to 1. Breakfast is a fried egg sandwich and hash browns. Lunch is generally pulled pork or egg salad sandwiches. And then at nighttime, one of our partnerships is actually with a Cafe Deluxe on Slater and Metcalf, and they provide us with 80 hot meals every night of beautiful, nutritious food at restaurant quality. So we've actually seen a huge outpouring over the past year when a lot of us at first were nervous about what the pandemic looked like for social services. We were worried about maybe some of the cuts or some of the holdbacks that the government would have. And that actually wasn't the case. We've received an incredible outpouring of love and provision from God and our partners. And as God provided, we actually started to provide in different ways to our guests as well. Through several leadership mentality initiatives, trying to develop young leaders around the supper table, we brought in the use of small settings of programming to alleviate some of the mental health burdens. We tried to create community among the guests who were otherwise seen as marginalized or overlooked by the rest of society, and we've tried to create a taste of everyday life of those who are less fortunate while allowing them to access monthly movie nights and monthly game nights. Now, these have been on pause due to the pandemic, but it is the sort of vision of the supper table to take our inward passion for volunteers and put that into outward change. So really looking at the community around us and the people that we serve. Our neighbors for the longest time have been coming to us, and for the past year we've actually had the pleasure of really working in our community, getting to know new faces as struggles change with the pandemic. And one of our largest partnerships right now is actually in Strathcona Heights, working at the Wiggins Community Center and offering a food bank to 450 residential families in that area. And as Larry was saying, it's an incredibly diverse group of individuals and families ranging from single male households who are 65 and war veterans living on ODSP, Ontario Disability Support Program, or we have a new family from Kenya or Uganda, and it's a family of 9, and it's the mother, the husband, the grandfather, the grandpa, and all the kids as well. So we've really been trying to take that focus and that love and the energy that all the volunteers have that and sort of displace that into the community to build those around us. We think that the inward focus turning into an external gaze, we think that the partnership with the city over the span of the next 5 years is really going to uplift our neighbors. Rather than have them strictly come to us, we're actually able to meet them where they are, which is crazy essential. As Jesus walked, he traveled, and his ministry was expansive, and he was always willing to meet people where they are, and that's something that the supper table is trying to bring in. Our programming at this point is also hoping to be increased as the weather changes, as certain initiatives sort of evolve. Ottawa's putting in a lot of effort into the Strathcona Heights community, which we're already serving in. So working together to help alleviate the poverty in Strathcona Heights and in Sandy Hill, we personally have invested nearly $50,000 into our commercial space, our kitchen space, for the ability to provide safe, nutritious meals for people who do live in bug-ridden houses. And we want to provide that sense of community for the lost, and we want to be that lighthouse in the community when we're surrounded by darkness. We understand that the pandemic is long, we understand that we're still in it, and that patience is not something we're given, but something we're given an opportunity to practice. And that sort of brings me into our sort of little anecdote about the supper table, which is we've had such an outpouring of love and an expression of hope and faith from our parishioners and community members and partners that we've actually had such an import, and we can extend our vision past more than just one at a time. And that vision sort of took us to how do we reconnect with our parishioners in a positive way. And so this Christmas we did a Christmas fundraising program, almost like a Bay Christmas catalog, and we did a bunch of baked goods. And I was actually surprised. I knew the parish loved jam. We've always made in-house homemade supper table jam, but the outpouring 24 liters of jam had to be made for the Christmas catalog, which was unheard of, blew my mind out of the water. I drove to 7 different stores in one day looking for empty jam jars at Christmas time, not thinking that jamming only happens once a year at Thanksgiving. And the entire time in my mind is be patient, I provide, and that's just God informing us that he's always there for us. He's always willing to provide. And so the next day, I went to 4 different stores, got all the jam jars. Over 200 jam jars were needed for the 24 liters of jam. And that's sort of when this sort of conversation piece happened at the supper table. That yes, it may be frustrating, it may be trying, but God is giving us an opportunity to be patient. He's giving us an opportunity to build our patience. And every day at the supper table, we have that opportunity with guests. Sometimes we get a little impatient with them, so we ask ourselves, where's the jam? The amount of times I have to ask, where are the jam jars? It just puts it into perspective that we're not at a fast pace right now. We're not trying to steamroll everybody over. We're at a very slow pandemic pace right now. And so the intentionality behind it really brings in the note of where's the jam? Try to be patient, try to persevere.
Well, great. That gives us an idea of the history, the current reality of the supper table, where things are going as well. I appreciate all of you participating in this, and I think we're going to hear a lot more from the supper table in the near future. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.